What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another big edition of the Gators Online Show. I am Keith Niebuhr with Gators Online, but the star of the show is the guy on the other screen there. That's Zach Albaverde, senior reporter with Gators Online. He is live as we record this, taking for a live studio audience at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, where on Saturday evening, Florida pulled off just another thrilling come-from-behind victory to beat the Auburn Tigers, the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament, entering this whole thing. Florida wins 79-73. Auburn only lost 6 games all season. 2 of them were to the University of Florida. And now Florida will play the Houston Cougars, another incredible story, another incredible come-from-behind win. They take down the Duke Blue Devils on Saturday by 3 points in a thrilling game with a late rally. So now you've got Florida versus Houston, 2 number 1 seeds. Monday night, the winner cuts down the nets. The game starts at 8:50 p.m., and it will be on CBS. We're going to talk all about the game Saturday and some about the game Monday, but Zach's got to help us pay some bills here. Let's do this really quick and get into the nitty-gritty. Take it over, Zach.
No doubt, Keith. Well, obviously, it is Final Four weekend, but spring football is going on, and we are working with Big Game Football Factory as they have designed the new football for the Gators in 2024, and you can get your hands on it if you head over to their website and take advantage of the deal and promo that they got going right now. BigGameUSA.com with the code GatorsOnline will get you 10% off your entire order and free shipping for a limited time. The Gators designed this ball with Big Game USA to ensure that they're comfortable with it, so it's truly one of a kind. Start your collection of Florida's official game balls today and be among the first to own it. Snap yours at BigGameUSA.com.
All right, Zach, let me get back on the screen here. Look, man, again, another game where there were moments in the game, like the UConn game, like the Texas Tech game, where you're thinking, boy, I don't know if this is going to be Florida's night. At the half, Auburn led 46-38 and, quite frankly, had missed some open jumpers. They might have been up by more.
Yeah.
Florida did not play great in the first half. Auburn played out of this world. It was sort of a reversal of the first meeting between the teams, which Auburn won back in February, which Florida won at Auburn back in February, 90-81. But in the second half, Florida takes control of the game. But Zach, at halftime, again, the numbers were not looking good for Florida. They were practically even with Auburn on the boards. Well, we knew that they had to out-rebound Auburn to win the game. Walter Clayton was playing well. Elijah Martin was playing well, but not a lot of guys were hitting shots besides those two. And Auburn was playing lights out. How did Florida pull this thing out? How did they turn it around?
I mean, I just wrote about it at Gators Online. It started with a halftime speech from Carlin Hartman, who told me that he's got on his players before in the past, but it was a dire situation on Saturday at the break because of the way Auburn dominated that first half, specifically in the paint. They got 26 points in the paint. Janai Broome was basically doing whatever he wanted to do, getting to his spots. Florida wasn't really challenging him. And Garland Hartman started pointing fingers at halftime, Keith, and basically said that these guys are challenging your manhood. And he specifically came at Ruben Chinyelu, Florida's starting center, told him that he needed to step up or Florida was going home. And boy, did he ever. You mentioned the rebounding battle, Keith. Florida actually ended up winning it 39-30. And his rebounds were the difference. He had a team-high 9 rebounds. 8 of them came in the second half, and 3 of them on the offensive glass. Probably the biggest one that he made was with 11 seconds left in the game. Thomas Howell misses 2 free throws right here. If Auburn gets that rebound, it's still a game. And Ruben brings it down. He kicks out to Walter Clayton, who knocks down 2 foul shots, and Florida wins the game. So many winning plays were made in the second half by Walter Clayton, by Elijah Martin, the crazy dunks that he had. Thomas Howell made some plays underneath the rim, as well as Will Richard. But Florida had to change in the paint and start winning inside, and they did. I mean, it was a tale of 2 halves, Keith, with how they were able to flip the script. I mentioned 26 points for Auburn in the first half in the paint. They just had 8 in the second half, and Florida had 16. They also forced 12 Auburn turnovers, which is the most that they had in half in the season, and that was huge.
Well, the interesting thing, Zach, is that Florida had 11 second half.
Yeah, they did.
It's funny because I've heard people over and over. I talked to a lot of my friends. We all went to the University of Florida. You did. And everybody was like, what a great game. And you know what? A couple Auburn reporters that I know called me and said, what a great game. But boy, there were a lot of turnovers. Florida ended up with 16. Auburn, I think, ended up with 14. But off those turnovers, Auburn only scored 6 points.
Yeah.
16 Florida turnovers. Florida scored 16 points off of Auburn's 14 turnovers. Now, Zach, you had a great story last week. Look, is Walter Clayton putting together this season that's the greatest season in Florida history? I think that's been answered. I think individually, I don't think there's any question. I had somebody call me today, diehard Gator fan who used to cover the team, actually, and he said, what about Andy Owens back in the 60s? Andy Owens, Neil Walker put together all these great statistical seasons, but they didn't play in these types of games.
No.
They just didn't. Florida had one great season in the 60s, so you really can't compare the two. I always compared him to Dan Cross, who led the Gators with some help, but just like Clayton has help. In 1994, he led them to the Final Four, but in the national semifinal game against Grant Hill and Duke won 70-65, and Dan Cross had one of his worst games of the season, 10 points. Walter Clayton had one of the best games in school history in the Final Four on Saturday night with 34 points, 20 in the second half. And so you talked to a bunch of people after the game, and they just, when I say a bunch of people, I don't mean a bunch of slappies, as we call them, like my buddies. Like I've talked to, you talked to some real people. Who did you talk to, Zach, and what do they have to say about Walter Clayton?
Yeah, well, I was sitting right behind me, literally right behind me, were Roy Williams, Tubby Smith, Scott Drew, Alabama's coach, Ole Miss's coach. I mean, it was a who's who of coaches here. And the way that game went at the end, I had to ask those guys what they thought about the performance that they just saw and just ask them to describe Walter Clayton's night in one word. And Roy Williams said, well, let me give you two. And he called him the real deal, which is also what Charles Barkley called him after the game. Yeah. And very interesting, the parallels there with Roy Williams and Walter Clayton with that specific performance. I'm sure a lot of people have saw the stat that came out, which is that he's the first player to score 30 points in the Elite Eight in the Final Four for the first time since Larry Bird in 1979, which is pretty impressive. Only 7 players have done that in NCAA tournament history. But another crazy stat was that he had the most points in a Final Four victory since Al Wood in 1981, whose 39 points is still an NCAA semifinal record. But Roy Williams was an assistant coach for North Carolina when Al Wood did that against Virginia. So Roy Williams saw two of the greatest performances that have ever happened in the Final Four. And it was interesting. You could tell your friend, Keith, he mentioned Andy Owens. Well, Walter Clayton just broke his 55-year-old record on Saturday night for Florida's single-season scoring record. He topped Andy Owens, who had 676 points in 1969-1970. Walter Clayton's at 702 now this season. He also passed Joakim Noah for the most points in a single NCAA tournament for the Gators. And he's got a chance at another school record on Monday, Keith. He obviously kept it going with another 3. That's 61 straight games with a 3-pointer. And he's really, really close to beating Michael Frazier. Michael Frazier had 118 3-pointers in a season in 2013, 2014. Walter Clayton's at 116. He's 2 away from tying him, 3 away from breaking the record. And I can't wait to see what he does Monday.
Way before you were born, and I'm sure I'm going to get crucified by Gator fans who think I'm the most negative person in the world, which is far from being accurate. But after Larry Bird's 2 big performances, Michigan State did put the clamps on him in the final, and Michigan State did beat Indiana State. But he was playing for Indiana State. In fact, Indiana State was playing for a national championship, so that's all you need to know. Walter Clayton, unbelievable season, unbelievable player, unbelievable in big moments, was huge against Texas Tech. They don't even get to the Final Four without that. If he's not on point last night in the second half, they don't win. But Zach, he also was on point in the first half, and as Charles Barkley pointed out, I'm turning that into a story as we speak. Not many other guys were making any shots. Finally, they joined him in the second half.
Yeah.
He didn't just win it in the second half. He won it by keeping Florida from being 20 points down.
100%.
Okay, and so sometimes we have to add that depth, to the whole picture. But just an incredible performance. Zach, I'm going to look at the stats here really quick to see what else jumps out. Alex Condon struggled on the offensive end, didn't make a shot. 1 point.
I still think he's not 100%.
Yeah, if something doesn't look right, his feet and his head. We talk about football all the time. When a quarterback's brain and his arm and his feet aren't in sync, they can't complete a 5-yard pass. Guys with rocket arms. Something looks funny. Even when he's dribbling the ball out at the top of the key, it just doesn't look right. So hopefully he can kind of get some confidence and get in there. He did come in the second half when he played and did some good things defensively.
He did.
Perhaps very good things. Perhaps that will give him some confidence on the offense. Chinyelu only scored 5 points, and then Henglogden didn't score at all. But again, Thomas Howe quietly, 12 points. Now he stunk it up at the free throw line at the end of the game. I'm sure he was kind of embarrassed about that, but played great. 12 points, 2 key blocks. Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, didn't he have another block that should have been a block?
Yeah, it was 100% a block. It was not a foul. And then the catch that he made over here off the inbounds play where he muscled his way up and scooped it up into the – I mean, that was a huge play.
He's the real – talk about the real deal. He's the real thing too. And so you're able to get some inside points from him. Quietly 12 rebounds, 12 points, 7 rebounds in 25 minutes. Denzel Aberdeen, the backup guard who had played so well in a starting role when Elijah Martin was injured in the big win at Auburn earlier this season, did not have a great game. So Aberdeen 3, Henglogden 0 points, Condon 1 point, Chinyelu 5. That's 6. That's 9 points between those 4 guys. Florida didn't even really play its best game. Now, Auburn.
They still haven't played.
Yeah, and I'm sure Auburn's probably saying the same. We didn't play our best game either. But Walter Clayton, so good. Elijah Martin, 17 points. Zach, I had a stat today. He played 2 Final Four games. The one from 2 years ago at FAU. In those 2 games, he's now got 26 points and 17 points, over 50% shooting in both games. He was a man last night. He was a man out there.
Yeah, it was.
This makeup of this team, Zach, they've got another big challenge. They're in there celebrating last night. You're in there doing the interviews, and Houston's just getting their bell rung, just getting the crap kicked out of them for the first 15 minutes.
People left.
That is going to be an immense challenge. Great defensive team, number 1 in the country. And again, the championship game is Monday night, 8:50 p.m. Eastern time. You're going to be there at the Alamo Dome. But Houston, number 1 in field goal defense in the country, number 1 in scoring defense in the country. They in Florida have identical records. They're number 2 in the net rankings at the end of the regular season. Florida was number 3. Very similar strength of schedule. Now, they played probably a stronger non-conference schedule than Florida did. They played Auburn and Alabama, but then Florida played a much stronger conference schedule. 2 teams that did it differently. But boy, and another thing, Zach, let me point out, I'm rambling on here. Both of those teams really didn't get the calls last night, it didn't seem like. And they overcame a lot of other things. They overcame great opponents, but also just one of those nights where you're not getting the calls. What can you tell us about Houston, and what does Florida think about Houston? You met with all the Gators today.
Yeah, obviously they what they do on defense really stands out. You look at the matchup breakdown statistically between these 2 teams, and I've been doing this throughout the tournament, Keith. Florida's had the statistical advantage pretty much against every single team that they've been matched up with. This is the first time where they don't have the statistical advantage. And now they do in a lot of categories, but they don't have more than Houston. So just on paper, this is a tough matchup for Florida. I do think from a positive note for the Gators, I don't know if Houston can keep up with Florida from a scoring standpoint. I mean, they only average 73 points a game, but they're so good on defense, only giving up 58 points a game, that helps offset it. But they're going to have to find somebody to try and slow Clayton down, which, you can't stop them. You can only hope to slow them down. But I think defensively, Florida – they need their bigs to show up again like they did in the second half throughout this game. I mean, I know Condon is probably not 100%, but if Florida can get a performance like him that he's had in previous weeks, that could be the difference in this game, 100%. I think that they have to do a good job taking care of the ball. They've had some issues with turnovers in recent games, and Houston will turn you over. And we saw that in last night's game. So I'm interested to see how this plays out. I do still think that Houston is probably the better matchup for Florida. If they had to pick which team to play, I think they probably would have preferred to play the Cougs versus Duke. But this is going to take Florida's probably best game or one of their best games of the season. And the good thing for them is they still have not played it yet in the tournament. They have not played a full 40-minute game, and now would be a good time.
A little bit about Houston, and I'll throw you a couple more questions, and then Zach's got to get going. 35-4, like I said, same record as Florida. They won the Big 12. They finished 19-1 in the conference. They also won their Big 12 tournament title. Their only loss in the regular season was, I believe, at home to Texas Tech, which Gator fans obviously know Texas Tech is the real deal as well. We're using that phrase a lot, but Texas Tech was damn good. They avenged that loss later in the season, but Texas Tech was missing a couple of key players in that game. So Texas Tech found something against Houston. Net ranking, number 3. I can't remember. Did they actually finish ahead of Florida? I don't know. They're number 3 in the net rankings. And so they played a lot of good teams. Let me pull that up here. No, they finished 3rd. Florida was 4th. And but here's some other numbers. They were 14-3 in quad 1 games, 6-1 in quad 2. So they played very good teams. Biggest win, obviously, last night, Saturday night against Duke. Biggest regular season win was the win at Texas Tech, which finished number 7 in the net rankings. They had a loss to Auburn at home, 74-69, but that was in their second game of the season, Zach. Back and forth game. Houston led with 2 minutes left, just like last night's game. Could have gone either way. So these are all teams that know how to fight. Worst loss. They lost to lost to San Diego State back in November, 73-70 in overtime. Now, San Diego State was in the Final Four a couple years ago, but this season was only 52nd in the net rankings. Houston is 10-0 in its last 10 games, owns an 18-game winning streak. The main player that everybody's got their eyes on is senior guard L.J. Cryer, 15.6 points a game. Here's a cool thing, Zach. He only shoots 41% from the field, but almost 43% from three-point range. So he's actually better from three-point range than he is from two-point range, which is pretty rare. 90% foul shooter, so you don't want to fall behind these guys. 6'1", first team all Big 12. He had 26 points against Duke, 6 of 9 on three-pointers. Last guy I'm going to mention, sophomore forward Joseph Tugler, 6'8", only scores 5.5 points a game, Zach, but he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. They got some dudes. They get after it. Florida's got some dudes. They get after it. Yep. It's going to be one hell of a game. You've got to get work to do. Looks like they're getting ready to shut the lights on.
Yeah, it does.
And by the way, I got a call from Roy Williams today. He was complaining to me about your sentence structure, so we're going to work on that. Get that. He was reading all your stuff over your shoulder.
It was. I will say it was really cool to meet Roy Williams.
Oh, man. Hey, I was at a North Carolina game last season. A friend took me to the Dean Dome, and they were playing jump around, and Roy Williams was like doing this. It was hilarious. Zach,
Keith, where would you rank this Final Four among the best Final Fours that you've watched?
Listen, I mean, first of all, you got the 4 clearly best teams in college basketball. That rarely happens. What rarely happens is that you have 4 teams that are kind of a level above everybody else. So you got the 4 best teams. Both of those games were thrilling and just incredibly exciting yesterday. Florida with this brilliant second half on both ends of the court, and then Houston with that remarkable rally. It must have just been, Zach, you're there. That place must have just been electric. And we need to point out, Houston's right down the road, and it is a big school. They say, it's just a commuter school. They got a lot of fans.
Oh, no, there's a ton of fans here.
They're going to be all over the place. So it's not going to be a home game, but there's going to be a partisan crowd, no doubt.
And Todd mentioned one good thing today is that the experience in the SEC tournament final against Tennessee, he feels like will help them in the national championship game. He said it was an 80% Vols crowd when they went into Bridgestone Arena, and having to face that type of environment, he thinks will be beneficial Monday.
The great Houston Cougar. I got to tell you, the best nickname ever in college sports, period, bar none, is the Houston Cougars of 83 and 84, Phi Slamma Jamma. Best nickname ever, coolest thing ever. Those 2 teams of the Hakeem Olajuwon both lost in the NCAA championship games. The 83 team lost to NC State and Jim Valvano on a last-second shot in Albuquerque. The cardiac kids of NC State. The next year, Houston gets to the final again with Hakeem Olajuwon, and they have to play the great Georgetown team in the final with Patrick Ewing. This is Houston's one more crack. They've never won. They've been to the Final Four 7 times. Story program. 3 NBA Hall of Famers: Clyde Drexler, Hakeem Olajuwon, the great Elvin Hayes. It's a phenomenal program. And I know Hakeem Olajuwon was there last night. It was cool to see. And I keep thinking, another Houstonian is former Gator Vernon Maxwell. It's a shame.
That's right.
No tweets from Vernon about the Gators. And well, it's a shame. It's a shame they couldn't get on the same page. But anyway, Zach, quick prediction. I've got Florida by 3. Another tight game that could go either way. The key to me, two keys. Houston's a very good rebounding team. Not a huge team, very good rebounding team. Florida's got to win the battle on the boards, not let Houston get offensive boards. And 2, Florida's been turning the ball over a good bit, and Houston will turn you over. Walter Clayton is going to probably face his stiffest test of the year. Ball handling is not his strength of all his strengths. Not terrible, obviously, but he's got to take care of the ball. If he does that, I like Florida's chances. So I'll say Florida 73-70. What do you got, Zach?
Yeah, I've got Florida winning, and I do think that they need a complete game. You know, they need all 5 of their starters to show up. Not that Will Richard has not shown up. The guy's made plays on defense. The guy's sacrificed his body. He's not afraid to get physical, but he hasn't made a ton of, hadn't had a lot of offensive moments in this tournament. I think he's due potentially for some big shots and some big moments. And then I mentioned it earlier, whether it's Alex Condon or just Florida's collective front court, they need to kind of dominate and have a presence throughout the game as opposed to just the way that they did in the second half last night. So I think that they've got the firepower to do it, but it's going to take their best effort.
Excellent teams, both of them, excellent rosters, excellent coaching staff. It's going to be a great one. Zach, we appreciate it. You've got to go. You've got to catch a media shuttle. We'll do it again soon. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a national championship in a few days. Take care, everybody.